before I get into the formal comments that I will make, let me say to Kevin, I've been called a lot of things over the years. Not sure that I've ever been called a smear. Some people, since I got elected as mayor, they have called me the sheriff mayor, the sheriff mayor-elect. But the smear, that's a new one. Even the SME, but I take it all as a grain of just the appreciation that people have for the work that we do in this community. I'm very humble. I'm a humble servant. This is my home. This is where I was born and raised, and I appreciate the fact that Kevin and Charles and others shared a bit of their own personal experience with knowing someone or struggling personally with substance abuse. I have never been a substance abuser, but there have been times I felt like I was a substance abuser because of the work that we've done, the family that I have. I'm blessed because my father yet lives on, a 96-year-old gentleman here in this community who yet drives an automobile. Himself struggled with alcohol. And at the age of 65, he decided one day, that's the last time I'm going to ever have a drink. It's the last time I'm going to smoke, and he just quit cold turkey. And he has lived on now for another 31 years. My oldest brother, in 1967, when he was 18 years old, got addicted to heroin. And I saw the impact that my brother's addiction had on our family. And so, like many of you in this audience who are sitting here, or perhaps yourself, if you have never been a substance abuser, you probably know someone who has been addicted, had some kind of addiction. And so in what we do in law enforcement and public safety, we deal with just everyday people. And we deal with individuals who are broken in many ways. What I like about Bridges International is the fact that they take and assist these broken individuals with putting their shattered lives back together. And so when Lori came to me and had the concept about naming this facility after me, I had mixed emotions about that because, in all honesty, the work that we do, we never try to make it about ourselves. It's about the opportunity to serve others. But in the time that I have been a public servant, I can say that I've seen some improvement. 10 years ago, we were booking on an annual basis about 61,000 people through the Orange County Jail each year. Last year, that number was closer to like 43,000 people. Over time, I've seen the numbers of individuals incarcerated in our jail decline in the last 10 years. Back in August of 2008, we had 4,900 people in our jail. This morning at 4 a.m., we had 2,622 people incarcerated in our jail. Out of that 2,622, 331 of them were women. And probably the saddest number, 11 of them were children. They were individuals under the age of 18. And if you understand, those of you who work in the system, you don't go to jail if you're a child unless you have committed a serious felony, in most cases a violent felony. And so we, as a community, if we want to improve the quality of life for our community, then we do have to come together and figure out ways to create opportunities and options for people with addiction. Because we, at the end of the day, we all really pay for it, and those numbers in the Orange County Jail are a result of, because we're booking fewer people in jail, there are fewer people who will go to prison. 80+% of the people who go to prison, they're coming back into these communities almost all of the individuals who go to jail, they're coming back into these communities. This is where they're going to live. The reason why some of the numbers have come down in the last 10 years is because we got smarter as a community. We have an asset in this community called the Central Receiving Center, where we divert individuals from incarceration who might have committed a minor violation of law, who may be mentally ill, or who are addicted to some substance. Rather than arresting them, we give them treatment. We take them to the Central Receiving Center. Treatment is a much better option to cutting down on the recidivism, to stop individuals from the vicious cycles that sometimes they find themselves in. So it's spending money, smart money. When we talk about smart growth, well, part of smart growth is spending the dollars that we have most appropriately. And when we can get people into treatment, into a facility like the Jerry Demings Center for Recovery, this is what, as a smart, intelligent community, this is what we must do in order to break the cycle. It's far less costly as a community to provide the treatment than to incarcerate individuals. Now, there are some, I can tell you as a lawman, there are some people who need to go to jail. And sometimes that experience of going to jail is what helps to introduce them into the system. But you heard Lori talk about the fact that the services, this is one-stop shopping for these individuals. They can come and get a smorgasbord of services here. And so our goal is to look to study this a bit more, to replicate this by going after federal dollars and state dollars. We acknowledged some of the elected officials, but I wouldn't be the husband that I am if I didn't also recognize that my wife, the Honorable Congresswoman Val Butler Demings, also has a staff person here. Her district director, Sandra White, is here. Sandra, you're here somewhere, wave your hand. There she is over there. Of course, my wife is in Washington, D.C. Today, doing the work of the people here in our nation. I am very optimistic that by working together, we will be able to get additional funding, hopefully from federal sources, from our state legislators. You heard the testimony from an individual who has been recently struggling with addiction. And the fact that he's here today, he's able to stand here and articulate how this program benefited him, I think indicates success. There are more people like him that we want to have success. In Pine Hills, we have spent a lot of resources here in the Pine Hills area. You may ask why. Why do we care? Well, there are multiple reasons why. I think as God's creatures, we have the responsibility to take care of all of His creatures, all of His human beings. But we have family who are here, who live in this community. I have family who lives here in this community. Also, when I looked at crime, when I took over as sheriff 10 years ago, I looked at the epicenters of where crime was occurring. And one of those epicenters was here in the Pine Hills area. And when I ran for sheriff, I promised the people that we would reduce crime in this community. The best way that we can reduce crime is to prevent it from ever happening in the first place by changing the way people make decisions. And that's where we interject ourselves in the lives of young people. We have partnerships. You're going to hear an awful lot about the P3s during my administration, the public-private partnerships, where government and the private sector and the nonprofits will come together to solve the challenges of our community. And so here in this Pine Hills area, we have connectivity between Evans Community School, Evans High School, and various other governmental components that are coming together to make a difference in the lives of the people who live here. But also, if we do this right, because we deal with, you heard me talk about the recidivism, treatment, you make people whole, you put the shattered lives back together, they commit fewer crimes. The Central Receiving Center, I've talked about that. All of that is part of the larger, bigger picture, the comprehensive strategy to reducing crime. So we've been effective through 2017 since I took office. Overall crime had declined in Orange County by about 30%, and violent crime went down by about 34%. So one of the multifaceted approaches that we have includes this. And so I encourage the new sheriff, Sheriff Mina. I will work with him to continue the efforts. He was part of this effort here in Pine Hills as Orlando Police Chief. We had great partnerships working together. We're going to continue those partnerships. And so today, again, I'm humbled that you all have saw fit to honor me in this way. But remember that it's not about me, it's about we. And thank you all very much for being here and sharing in this auspicious occasion.
Recognition for today to Sheriff Demings, who came proudly front and center in his office. But the signage in the building looks exactly like that. There's a big plaque that will be inside of the building for the dedication, so you'll see it as you're doing the tour. But thank you so very much. As Sheriff Demings has mentioned, there were a number of partners, and I don't know if you looked at the back of your programs or not. This is just a small segment of the organizations or partnerships that we've had with being a part of this, and I do want to acknowledge that there are many of these partners here. And so, Sheriff, if you don't mind, we need to cut the ribbon. And I would like, if any of our partners are here, and I know our staff is here, if you don't mind stepping behind here and assisting the sheriff, we have the role of the comparison too.
Okay, everybody, before you leave, we're going to do our closing prayers by Pastor Dan Daly, the Westwood Church. So we're going to do our closing prayers, and then afterwards we have an area with refreshments that you guys can do a tour of the facilities as well. So right now we'll do our closing prayers, and thank you all for coming today.
All right, thank you. My name is Dan Daly. I'm the pastor of Westwood Church. Can I ask Mayor-elect, Sheriff-elect, and Lori to come up? We want to pray for you as a community. If you guys want to gather in and pray with them. You know, it's unless the Lord builds, it's useless. You know, and God has elected these servants to bring us forward as a community. And as a community, we need to continue to pray for them and for this facility. I've been involved with the Bridges of America ministering and also just partnering with them for 8 years. I've seen great success stories, but we need a lot more. The very first story that I saw was a man that had a DWI manslaughter charge against him. He served his time, he went to the bridge, we got involved with him. We have upwards of 20 guys come every Sunday to the church. We developed a relationship. Just this past year, he was ordained as a reverend. And there's many, many more success stories like that. So please remember this facility, remember the bridge, and remember these leaders, what they're doing for our community. Amen? Father God,